New Jersey Politics. I'm Laura Jones. My guest today is former Congressman Mike Pappas, who served from 1997 to 1999 in New Jersey's 12th Congressional District. Today, Mike Pappas is a candidate for state Senate and New Jersey's 16th Legislative District, which takes in parts of Hunterdon, Mercer, Middlesex, and Somerset counties. Congressman, good to see you.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me here with you.
Well, as I mentioned, that you were a member of Congress in the 90s and have decided that you want to run for elected office again. So tell me a little bit about why you decided to put your hat in the ring and run.
I served at the U.S. Small Business Administration right after 9/11. I see many parallels between the devastation that the small business sector of our private sector in particular has experienced over the past year and a half. The devastation that we saw after 9/11, thousands upon thousands of small businesses, certainly in the New York metropolitan area, were adversely impacted, but that impact went clear across the country. And the SBA was an important part of um, uh, the resources to help facilitate recovery. I see many parallels between then and now. The pandemic and the closures of small businesses after the emergency declarations were issued, very similar in their devastation. Small businesses having to close while many large businesses, Walmart's stayed open, mom and pop shops had to close, selling the exact same items. My opponent, Andrew Zwicker, was complicit in supporting those measures. And that is one of my primary reasons for running for the state Senate, is because the small businesses are hurting. I believe because of my experience as an official at the SBA, my personal experience having grown up in a family-owned business, and my service as a member of the U.S. House Small Business Committee when I was in Washington, I think make me very suited to be a fighter for small businesses.
So can you tell me a little bit about what the business community is telling you? Like I mentioned before, this district takes in parts of Hunterdon, Mercer, Middlesex, Somerset counties. So what are the business owners telling you?
They're frustrated. They're frustrated because the state government, and my opponent, Andrew Zwicker in particular, has been one of those that has actually voted to raise state income taxes. He's done so twice in recent memory. He also voted to raise a tax on health care. He also was part of the state government led by the governor, but with the legislature's approval, went into $9.9 billion of additional debt when the state had a surplus. That debt, $9 billion, almost $10 billion, is like mortgaging our children and our grandchildren's future. It's unconscionable. And I want to go to Trenton to be a vote against those kinds of taxes and against those kinds of ridiculous debt. It's just it's indescribable, and I don't know how anyone can defend that.
And as we're seeing more information come out about COVID and how it's evolving, and now we're hearing about the Delta variant, we're hearing little inclinations of, well, we have to have masks back on again. And you look out to other areas in this country, whether it's Los Angeles, where there's a mask mandate back. I believe I read somewhere about some other restaurants having to close. How big of a concern is it for the business owners who made it through all the closures, who are just getting their feet back now? Is that a real concern on their horizon that they might get shut down again?
Well, the reality is that 1/3 of all small businesses have closed their doors permanently because of the shutdown. 1/3, one of three. So some of them have barely survived, but many of them have not. A shutdown will again devastate small businesses. I talk to small business owners every day. They tell me that they're having difficulties that they never experienced before. They can't hire people. People don't want to work. There's one friend who has a restaurant in Somerville, where I am calling you from or taking this interview from. He tells me that now he's going to have to probably close one day a week because he has to give his staff a break. They believe, with the looming concern about the Delta variant, that there's going to be a shutdown again. And many of them that were able to survive are concerned that they would not be able to survive again. And they ask me a question: why is it that larger businesses were able to stay open and smaller businesses had to close? They don't understand the logic of it. And no one's really explained the reason for that. Andrew Zwicker, what has he done? And what has the majority of the legislature done to support people like John, the gentleman that I mentioned that owns the restaurant here in Somerville? They haven't done anything. And I'll be there in Trenton to be their voice.
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up about the legislature. What are they doing? Governor Murphy has come in with executive orders and seemingly kind of rendered lawmakers a little bit powerless. Would you say that during some of the executive orders when we're dealing with that? And if you win, you're going to have to deal with working with the governor. So, what are your thoughts about that on these executive orders and the legislature really, in essence, being powerless?
Well, it remains to be seen who is going to be governor. But no matter who the governor is, the legislature has a constitutional oversight responsibility over the executive branch. There have been members of the legislature that have introduced legislation that would require the legislature to approve and affirm an executive order after 2 weeks or some reasonable period of time. That hasn't moved because the majority do not support that. They want to just be dismissive and not take their responsibilities as elected officials as serious as I would. I understand the legislative process. I understand the responsibility to oversee the executive branch, and no matter who's governor, I will fulfill that constitutional responsibility.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that, your experience in Congress and how how the legislative works through the executive, how that experience is going to translate into you being the best suited to represent the 16th district in New Jersey as a member of the legislature?
I view the citizenship that I have as an American citizen as being an honor. What do I do with that? Do I try to use my skills and be an advocate passionately for the things that I believe in? That's why I'm doing this. I have been fortunate to have served in elective office, been out of it for a few years. But when given the opportunity to try to make a difference now, I'm really looking forward to it. It is important for people to understand that a legislator, whether they're in the minority or they're in the majority, individually are accountable to their constituents. It's important to be bold. It's important to be innovative, not to be a troublemaker, but to be a strong advocate for your constituents. And I will do that. I've always done that, whether I've served in local, county, federal office, whether I've been in the majority or the minority. I have been a passionate advocate for the people that I represent. Tony Bucco is a late state senator from up in Morris County. He used to say, when I'm in Trenton, you're in Trenton. And I attribute that to him because I didn't come up with the phrase, but that's what I will do. I understand the legislative process. I understand how important it is for legislators personally to be engaged with members of the executive branch, whether it's the governor, whether it's a cabinet secretary, whether it's an assistant commissioner. They're all important. Everyone has a role to play. I would roll up my sleeves. I'll work with anyone. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. Frankly, the older I've gotten, the less partisan I've become. I'm looking to work with people that share values, that want to solve problems. I'll work with anyone. And I look forward to that opportunity to do so with Democrats or Republicans in the state Senate.
Well, that is in New Jersey. There is such a divide between parties. So can you talk a little bit about what you just touched on right there is about, it's not Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's about, working together. We hear a lot about that, when people are running, it's like, forget the politics, here's what I want to do. How easy is that to really accomplish though? Because if you're in the minority, you don't have as much power, or if you're in the majority, you have a little bit more of the power, and with the power lays the responsibility or the blame, in fact. So sometimes, when people get into office, it's a little bit more difficult because you've got to be able to negotiate. So can you talk a little bit about that partisan divide and how you want to rise above that?
Well, the partisan divide is really about a divide of ideas. What vision do we have versus the other group, generally speaking? Not to a person, but generally speaking. My vision is to try to stop increasing of taxes. That's making New Jersey less and less affordable for people. It's not to vote for almost a $10 billion debt when the state has a budget surplus. This is simple stuff. I will go and speak to people on a one-to-one basis, try to establish personal working relationships with people, and talk to them about the impact that what people do in Trenton have upon people throughout New Jersey. I'm seeking to run and to represent the people in the 16th district, but what legislators do, what they enact in New Jersey, doesn't just affect their constituents. It affects all of the people of New Jersey. And so what affects the people that I would hope to represent is going to affect someone's constituents who's on the other side of the aisle. I will talk to them about, listen, I have a shop owner. This is what they're experiencing. There's probably a shop owner in your district that's experiencing the same thing. What can we do to help those people? That's what I'll do, and that's how I'll approach it.
All right. Well, former Congressman Mike Pappas, who is running for the state Senate in New Jersey's 16th legislative district, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me, and hope to talk to you again.
Absolutely. All right. And we want you all to stay with us as we continue here on New Jersey Politics. We're going to talk more about some of the headlines making news around the Garden State. Stay with us.
2020 felt like a dark tunnel, and while 2020 is over, the impact is not. The pandemic affected both our physical and mental health.
We started the Cody Fund for Mental Health to change lives, so we want you to know about NJ211.
It's a referral service for anyone in crisis, even children.
I am living proof that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not a train, it's help. It's NJ211.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Butler-Smith, and I'm the founder of Morph Mom. I'm thrilled to introduce our show, The Happier Hour. Each week, along with my 5 co-hosts, we will feature guest speakers who share personal journeys of strength and hope, along with tips and financial tools to bring inspiration to you to find your next step. You can watch The Happier Hour on News 12 Plus throughout the New York tri-state area. You can find us on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on Verizon Fios Channel 530 or Optimum Channel 61. See you Sunday.
Welcome to Distinctively Outdoors. Here at Distinctively Outdoors, we help our customers seek the ultimate experience for the best outdoor design. Distinctively Outdoors provides award-winning products that you can have right in your backyard, such as breathtaking kitchens and appliances, custom pergolas, quality outdoor furniture, and our relaxing hot tubs. Visit our store today in Parsippany, New Jersey, on Route 46, or call us at 973-828-1288 to help you get started on your dream outdoor environment.
Thanks for staying with New Jersey Politics. I'm Laura Jones, and joining me now is a colleague, a co-worker, a former State House reporter, and also one of the producers and directors and creative drive behind NJ On Air. Like, I've got a lot of titles for you there, Gerald. Gerald D'Ambria is joining us now to talk a little bit about some of the headlines making news around New Jersey on the political scene. And Gerald, one of the stories that kind of struck me is news about former Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno, who was the first Lieutenant Governor in New Jersey under Chris Christie, made an announcement or has left the Republican Party. And this happened yesterday, and
you have to talk out loud about what the real problems are. No doubt.
With the Monmouth County, Monmouth County Republican Chairman Sean Golden, who is also a former sheriff. So, I started reading that story, and then I also read that we all know that Christy Whitman had left the Republican Party a while back. So I'm kind of going through this in my mind, thinking, is this really about inner power plays within the Republican Party, or is there a bigger problem going on in New Jersey?
Yeah, I think it's more power play in Monmouth County. Monmouth County historically very, very strong Republican county. They've had some losses in the past few years, but they've kind of brought things back. Sean Golden, who is currently the Monmouth County Sheriff, he's also the chairman of the Republican Party in Monmouth County for quite some time now, and he's really kind of put his stamp on the party there. And I think there is a bit of a little back and forth and a bit of a battle going on between Sean Golden and the former Lieutenant Governor, who is also from Monmouth County, and the former Monmouth County Sheriff. So what's happened in really the past few months is we've seen a Sean Golden take a candidate off of the party line. So Assemblywoman Serena DeMasso was, Assemblywoman, and they took her off of the party line. They gave the party line to someone else. And, Serena who has been on the New Jersey Morning Show. She is, an ally of Kim Guadagno. So I think it's not necessarily a disagreement in terms of, core beliefs and it's time to leave the party. I really think it's about, I don't like the way that things are happening where I am in my county, so I'm going to switch to unaffiliated. I'm not going to be part of this anymore. That's kind of my impression of what's happening, and someone who has covered Monmouth County politics for a very, very long time and followed Monmouth County politics for a very long time. That's kind of what it looks like is happening. Why candidates are being removed from the party line, that we don't have an answer to. But that's definitely would be a great question for Sean Golden and be a great question for Serena DeMasso, and maybe we can get them on the show.
I'm always fascinated with the headlines and then what's really happening behind the scenes and what does that mean? That context, it matters. The content, it all matters. Now, I just had former Congressman Mike Pappas on, and before we went to the show, you and I were talking a little bit about another former congressman whose name is kind of coming up again, who was also a congressman in the 90s, former Congressman Dick Zimmer.
Right.
So we were kind of thinking, gosh, the last time Mike Pappas ran, we sparks were flying between the two.
Dick Zimmer has popped up as a candidate a number of times. He was successful as a congressman. He had multiple terms, but he left Congress, and I believe, Laura, you'll have to remind me, did he run for Senate? And that's why he left?
He ran for Senate against
He ran for Senate. And so
when I talk about sparks, those were serious sparks. I remember being in the State House and reporters were following former Senator Torricelli around. And I mean, he lit into it. I mean, it was electric. You could feel like the anger. That wasn't just it almost felt personal between those. Yes. It was intense.
The fact is, you and I know that pretty much everyone knows each other. It's a small community. Even though you're a Republican or a Democrat, you most likely know each other. You have run into each other. It's pretty rare that you don't know someone within New Jersey politics if you're an elected official or if you're a staffer or some way. So so there's a lot of disagreements, and there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we don't see, which is fascinating. But Dick Zimmer has popped up, and he ran. So Mike Pappas ran and got his seat in 97. And then, Pappas was not successful in his reelection. And then both of them, Pappas and Zimmer, at one point ran for that seat again against each other in the primary. And then Zimmer is back again for the state Senate seat. Mike won the Republican primary there. So it's interesting how kind of the same players pop up over and over and over again. And even Mike, Mike has been out of, the political eye, he's been out of the forefront for quite some time now. It's interesting to see why people get back in, when they get back in. And it's kind of like, I remember him from 97, 99. And it's interesting that people come back. So you never know who's going to come back in New Jersey politics.
Well, and then talking about coming back, when Mike Pappas was running for Congress in the Democratic primary, Dave Delvecchio, former mayor of Lambertville,
who you had on the show as well.
Yeah, that was one of the first political interviews I did. Even before I started with News 12 New Jersey, I was working for WZBN, and I would come out and cover what was happening in Mercer and Hunterdon County. And that's when Mike Pappas was running and in the Democratic primary. Oh, sorry, no, it was the Democratic primary. I'm getting my parties confused.
Delvecchio was in the Democrat primary, yes.
Yeah, Delvecchio was in the Democratic primary. Yeah. And then, Mike Pappas went on to...
And Delvecchio, again, another politician who served for 20 years as the mayor of Lambertville and is now back again running. Right. So it's interesting how you do. It is a small community, and the same people seem to go through it. And I think it's because my impression is I don't think a lot of people have the stomach to run for office or to get involved in politics. It is a very, very difficult business because it really is a business.
Well,
And
it's a very interesting point, Gerald, because, we joke about the world of broadcasters. There are only 40 people in this business, and the only thing that changes are call letters and your paycheck.
Correct.
But we have a passion for it. We love what we do, and much of the same can be said for many of these people who have been in elected official, and then they go into perhaps lobbying, consulting, those lines.
But I think it's interesting, Laura, to see where people go. So Mike left Congress. He went on to work for the Small Business Administration under George W. Bush, which is fascinating to see. He went to I'm assuming he went to D.C. And now I believe he's the administrator for the township of Bridgewater. So it is again the same group of people. Everybody knows each other, and to see kind of the experience that he's had over the years, going from Congress to the SBA to working in local municipality, now coming back in to become a legislator. It's really an interesting story, and there's only really a handful of people, again, I think, in the state who can do these things, because it is a tough business. When it comes down to it, it's about fundraising. It's about having those connections and having, that support. And it is not easy for someone like you or I really to just let's run for office now. Well, you know what? It's going to take a few years to kind of get things off the ground and get things going. So I think that's a lot of the reasons why we see a Dave Del Vecchio come back in and run, and we see Mike Pappas and we see Dick Zimmer, because they have the foundation already, and it's easier for them to get back into these races than
they've got those relationships. You nailed it. They have those relationships. They know how to navigate.
They have the name. Everybody, when you say Dick Zimmer, when you say Mike Pappas, if you're connected in New Jersey and you follow politics, you know who they are.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
John Bramnick, when he first ran for assembly, I remember, one of the things is, he won. He was nominated like one of the best comedians as a lawyer and a comedian. And now he's going to be running for state senate. And I think you've got some video that you wanted to show or talk about.
Yeah. So John, before we roll that, Pam, hold on a second. Oh, here we go. So before we roll that, so yes, John is a comedian. And so I guess you really don't, when you think of a politician, you kind of think of them as real stiff and everything, but he does stand-up comedy, and he's actually pretty good. He has an ad where he is mimicking the Wild West, and he's the fastest call back. He's the fastest call. He's not the fastest draw. He's the fastest call back of a politician. So you call his office, it's the fastest return call. Here, take a look.
Nice.
He is fast.
He's quick.
He's unbelievable.
John Bramnick, the fastest return call in government.
Of course I can help.
I called John Bramnick. He picked up on the first ring.
Happy to help.
Took care of everything.
I took care of it.
We thought my husband might have contracted COVID, so I called John, and he answered on the first ring and told us everything we needed to know.
Happy to help.
He was on vacation with his family. He still picked up on the first ring.
Thanks for calling.
I'm a Democrat. He still helped me, and that's the truth.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
Bramnick, Munoz, Matsakudis. No one's faster at returning your calls.
Never seen anything like it.
Thanks for calling.
I love it.
I'm going to call him. Let's see. No.
I think that is so creative. Forget about what side of the aisle you're on. I want to see that on television. It's so much fun. And there are so many stiff political commercials out there that we're going to see in the next few months, and they're going to be all over. And some of them will resonate with some people, but that's just a lot of fun. He delivered a message in a fun way, and it shows people that he's approachable. He looks kind of like a stiff guy.
Yeah, yes,
but he's not.
He deadpans it. Deadpans it so well, and he hits on something people just want to talk to a person. Don't
Yes.
put me on hold. Don't tell me you're going to take a message. Don't tell me these things. You want somebody to pick up the phone and you want to talk to a person, because in this time, especially of COVID, of people being on a computer, you feel you want a connection. So I think that is good point about not focusing on he said, she said, or politics. It's, I'm going to return your call.
Yeah. What have we been doing really well? And you know what? If and I know, Laura, you've experienced some of this. A lot of people have been really frustrated with getting answers from the DMV, from the NBC. So, you know, I've had experiences in contacting state government with certain departments trying to get a call back. And there's literally, on some departments, you call and there is just a message that says, "We are too busy to take your call." The message never changes. No one ever answers. There's no line or queue. So there is a frustration out there. And you have to wonder also, you know, are there more people calling government now during COVID? And I would assume maybe legislators, yes. But, you know, and I guess, you know, the MVC is, I'm sure, is flooded with phone calls. But some of the other departments, you have to wonder, are they being flooded? Like, what's going on there? And why aren't people answering? So I think it's a really, really good message at a really good time.
Right. Well, I think that's definitely going to connect to voters, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on, because, you know, like you said, either people will keep calling or they just give up. And sometimes I wonder, are people not answering because they think we're going to give up? And, you know, if you want to get something done, you know, kind of jumping to a different topic, if you want to get something done, just being that determined. And if you can stand and, you know, push long enough until somebody does pick up that phone or does answer that question instead of avoiding. So I think that, you know, John Bramnick, bring it back to John Bramnick, you know, he's saying, I'm not just going to pick up the phone. I'm going to, you know, answer your call. I'm going to listen to you for better. We should talk about that.
And John Bramnick, who was the Assembly minority leader, is running for state Senate now. So he's leaving his seat in the Assembly. He's going for, you know, a seat in the Senate and looking to be a colleague with Mike Pappas, potentially. And, but, you know, I think that messaging, that commercial, and I'm going to say it right now, that commercial you're going to see on Fox News, you're going to see on CNN or MSNBC. I think it's going to get a national pickup. I think it's really, really well done and a lot of fun.
Well, especially this time of year. In the summertime, this is, even though things really slow down, people will ask me, you know, from a consulting point of view, hey, you know, I want to get coverage for this, that, the other. Do it in the summertime because there's not as much competing. And if you get something out there, even though people, oh, well, you don't want to spend time advertising during this time of year, people are on vacation. Well, no, people are more and more connected than ever before. Just because you're on vacation doesn't mean you're not watching, doesn't mean you're not, you know, able to view and check things out. So it's a very different world as far as the campaign goes and what happens in the summertime. And it looks like John Bramnick's a little bit ahead of the curve and, you know, putting some money into doing advertising in the summertime and see what gets picked up, because we certainly picked it up.
I think, you know, I think it's fascinating when someone came up with the idea for this. And, you know, I mean, you think about, oh, let's do a Wild West. I mean, that could be a disaster.
Right.
If it wasn't executed right. I mean, that could really have been a disaster. But they executed it really, really well. Like, I was kind of shocked when I watched it. I thought I was going to laugh. Yeah. I did laugh, but in a good way.
Well, that's it. But even the graphics look good. It doesn't, you know, it's like.
It's not cheesy.
That's it. It's not, and he knows how to deliver it. And those things, like you said, it can either go really well, or it can just fall on deaf ears and just flop. And it did.
Yeah. So that's what makes politics fun. And I say, way to go, John Bramnick, because he's entertaining us a little bit during this season.
And he shares the same birthday as me, as does Mario, who's Princeton Public Affairs, and the late Senator Anthony Bucco, whose son is actually Anthony Bucco, all February 24th. So we used to have a February 24th cake that I would have on the show when we were at News 12, and we had a birthday club. And George Loffinger, who used to be head of Sports Authority, he too was on February 24th. So yeah, I'm gonna after we finish up the show here, I'm gonna call him and see if he does pick up, and then we can get back on it next week.
I think that's a great idea. Let's see if we can get him on the show, and I think we need to plan a birthday party in February at our studio, and we'll have everyone in.
So I guess we're going to wrap up the show here, and then I'm going to text him, and then I'll get back to you and let you know if he really is the fastest return call.
Let's see.
Let's see.
Awesome.
All right, Gerald, thank you for coming on and talking to us, and thank you for all that you do at NJ On Air and
Thank you, Laura.
Politics. And we thank you all so much for watching this week. We look forward to seeing you back again. You can follow us online, get the app NJ On Air. I'm Laura Jones. We'll see you next time.